I want to ask you a question for the beginning. So, what do you think it means to be a good wife?
Wow.
Big question.
Yuval. No, just association about what is good wife. Not only your answer, what the society think it's to be a good wife.
Good food,
Loyalty, good food.
I think
Great.
good education.
Fairness.
Good education to the kids.
Good education to the kids.
Partner.
Partner.
Yotam
I
Hadad.
don't know.
What the society think it's a good wife. Not Yotam
To
Hadad.
be beautiful and quiet.
Beautiful and
Not
quiet.
my opinion.
To care the kids.
Great. Okay, thank you very much. So today, in my presentation, I want to talk about the Sati costume. We heard a little bit about this in Lauren's class, and it was interesting, and I start to read about this topic, and I want to share with you. So Sati is the practice of burning a burning widow after her husband died. So widow זו האלמנה, and it's considered as act of honor to the family and respect for the marriage and the husband. And the idea behind is that the Sati could lead to paradise and to reunion with the husband. So it's כדאי לך. Okay. So why I ask you the question before? So in Sanskrit, Sati, the word Sati, mean good wife. The name of the costume. So we know that widows from all the castes doing this Sati, and mostly from upper caste and rich family. So it's an interesting fact. And originally the costume is voluntary. You can choose if you want to burn or not. But there is all the time pressure from the society, from the family, economic question about Yerusha, about the money that the husband leave for women. Yes. It's okay. It's okay. So even though sometimes she choose not to burn, the pressure make the society to burn even against her will.
What?
Yes. It was complicated to regret if you decide to do that. So here we have some picture, some draw that show this practice. You see, this is the fire of the burning of the husband, and in this moment she jumped to the fire. Yes. Okay. So one of the most famous story about Sati is the story of Padmavati. She was a beautiful queen who sacrificed herself and jumped into the fire after her husband's death. So this story is from 13th and centuries. And Padmavati became a symbol for the good wife, for the loyal woman that sacrificed herself out of love for the husband. In recent years, in the hundreds years, we have a reaction to this costume inside India and from outside. And one of the comments was Ram Mohan Roy that we heard about in Lawrence's class. So he was an Indian thinker and a reformer, and he led a struggle against the Sati during the 19th century. And he says religion claim that the Sati is not necessary according to Hinduism. And that was one of the Indian reaction. And the reaction from outside, we have the British Empire that in 1829 enacted a law against the Sati that stop the legal of Sati, and it arose against this law, but it's end the legal of this costume. So this is two reaction that against the Sati, but it's from totally different position. And all this topic make me to think a lot and to deliberate about the influence of this, the root of this costume on the society even today, even in the modern India society. What is the influence of this Sati costume? So I just thought about few questions that I will take with me, and I want to share with you. So what are the consequences of Sati meaning good wife? I don't know, maybe you know, to people know Sanskrit in the street? They know some words?
Yeah, a few, yes.
Yes, so maybe they know that Sati, the original meaning is good wife. So what it mean in the deep idea? And what did society used to think about the role of woman in the family? Was she only a wife? And when the husband died, is she needless? She has no existence without him. So this is some of the question. And I read interesting information and article, but it's just the beginning of this topic. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Leah.
Thank you, guys.
Can you just to give you information, Padmavati, she jumped into the fire along with many women because
Good morning, everyone. As I lost my last presentation, so I took my both presentation and I make from them a little series, and I call it Conflict in India. It's not all the conflict in India. I pick only two that very interesting me, and I will tell you later why they so interesting me. But let's start with chapter 1, some issues. Don't worry, I will explain everything. It's not working, but who cares? It's meant to be. It's working?
Ta-da.
Nonsense. Okay, it need to be the sounds of the opening Friends series. Never mind. Okay, so imagine. So, Assam issue. Before I will speak with you about specific in the situation in Assam, I want to say a few words about refugee and immigration all over the world. So the population of the world is 7.5 billion people, and according to the UN, 250 million today in our year are refugee, not in their home, not in their country, and it's really sad, but it will give us the full picture when we're going to speak about Assam. So, another few concepts that you need to know about Assam and about my next presentation. So, refugee and immigration. We used to mess between these two words, but the meaning of everyone is very different. But I gave you the full sentence, full definition from the UN website. But in our world, the definition is if they have home to back to it, if they have a country, or they don't have. If they leave their home because it's a war zone, or they leave their home because they want more salary. We need to understand that also the world treats them different, and it makes sense. Another three things, AFSPA. AFSPA, it's a law that enacted by the Indian government, Armed Forces Special Powers Act. It means that if the government, the central government, or every local state feels that in an emergency situation in the country, they can announce about AFSPA situation in their country, and the army have a lot of power what to do, how to rule the situation. NRC, it's the authority, like in Israel, from the Indian government to deal with all the citizenship and all this. And Assam, it's really nice country. It's in the west north of India, one of the seven sisters. It's a nice regime. The population of Assam, it's really a small country in India. It's 31, according to today, million people that they civil of India. Another, beside this number, there is quite of 5 million people that they refugee and immigration. Where is Assam? Assam is the little country here in the northwest, more of the west, and it's really a poor country, a lot of agriculture. It's the economy based on agriculture, and as I said, 10% of the population are immigration in this country. Where they came from? So in the 70s, Bangladesh get independence from Pakistan, and a lot of people went from Bangladesh to Assam. Another group we have that they came from Batu, and another came from Myanmar to Assam. So Assam full with immigration. It's already a poor country, and now, actually these days, after 30 years of weird situation in the country, the government start to deal with this situation. If you remember the story of Israel that we have in the last year, it's really similar, and it's really interesting for me because after a long time that the government didn't do nothing, and the poor people suffered, and the rich people get advantage from this because they have a lot of money, and they use the cheap manpower from Bangladesh. So now the country is need to decide what to do. So there is two sides. Again, I'm gonna tell you every argument or argument of every side, and it's gonna look for you very similar, and it's we need to think about it. It's a food for thought. So not the majority, but on the media, on the liberal side, left-wing side, we saw the opinions that we need to give them citizenship because they here for so long times and they built their house, they built their families here in India, and another reason is because they came to India on a refugee ticket. And once you came on a refugee ticket, you're a refugee for all over your life. But, and in Arachul line, mainly of this side, they from the city, from Delhi, from the left wing. On the other side, and this is the majority in Assam, they want that the government send them back to Bangladesh, or they don't care actually to where because they feel that the people from Bangladesh took their jobs, took their employees, and it took their money. And because I am a little bit in a rush time, I'm gonna walk to my next presentation, Kashmir Conflict. So, who knows who is this handsome guy?
It's very handsome.
This handsome guy is the Maharaja Hari Singh. Maharaja Hari Singh is the king actually. He was the king of Kashmir princess. So, a few words about Kashmir. Kashmir is a small emirate, Nesikhut, that called Kashmir, very rich regime, very good for agriculture, very nice fabric. And it was under the leadership of Hindu ruler, the Maharaja that we saw, but with a majority of Muslim, like 90% was Muslim. After the partition in 1947, Kashmir found itself after a few years of conflict, divided in three countries, 43% in India, 37% in Pakistan, and 20%, who knows why, in China. Okay, so this is the Kashmir regime, marking the red, it's all the Kashmir. This is the 43% that called now Jammu Kashmir, and they in the side of India. This is Kashmir Azad. This is the 27% that they belong now to Pakistan, and this is Akashi Chin. This is part of China. Okay, I'm gonna speak now about the Jammu Kashmir. Jammu Kashmir is the country, is a state in India. Population 7.5 million people. From this number, you can see in the religions that 5.2 are Muslim, 2 million Hindus, and who knows others. The capital city is really interesting. There is two capitals. One is for the summer and one is for the winter, because and it was very common in the ancient times that all the government moved every 6 months. But now in most of the world it's less common, but in Jammu Kashmir it's still happen, so it's very interesting. A curious, we call it in Israel. Okay, Kashmir. So the conflict between India and Pakistan now and all over the time from the partition, it's really intense situation on the border, but in a few times it was really a big war in the partition, and you can saw every few years there is really big fight between the countries. Every time the Indian army managed to stop the Pakistan, but we need to pray. Okay, and another side of this problem is the conflict inside Kashmir. that organized by the Pakistan government. The Pakistan government give a lot of money to a terror organization to make the life difficult in Kashmir. So you can, Al Qaeda. So Al Qaeda in Kashmir took a lot of money from the government of Pakistan. Another organization, terror organization, is Lashkar-e-Taiba, and we are familiar with it because this is the terror group that make the attack in Mumbai on Chabad. Okay. Next, so there is a few arguments of partition because there is the India side, the Jammu Kashmir, the people that live in Jammu Kashmir, and the Pakistan. Everyone wants part of the Kashmir. Okay, you're gonna see it's really nice because everyone used in the same argument, but for his opinion. So the India said that the people want to stay in Indian rule. They have the people go to the election of India. The people want to be Indian. Jammu Kashmir said that the people want independence, and the Pakistan said that they don't care from themselves. They care from the Jammu Kashmir people that they want to be belong to Pakistan. Next argument. The Pakistan said the Maharaja could not decide for all his population. Okay, he signed to be part of India, but he don't have the ability to do it. In the other side, the India side said that if the Maharaja signed, they have to be part of the India. He decided to be to union with the country. Okay, about the violence, the Jammu Kashmir want to take themselves and to be ruled on their own. About the violence, so the India side said that the Pakistani government are financing the terror organization. In the other side, the Pakistan side said that the Indian army is committed war crimes, raped, murders, and a lot of things. And the interesting part that the people of Jammu Kashmir said that both do a lot of violence. And the great thing that everyone says that the United Nations is irrelevant, like always. Okay, a really summary word for all my presentation. In the start of the course, we heard about we saw the TED about the danger of one-side story, and I try to give you in all my three presentation a knowledge, a broad knowledge that you can decide. I think that we have to take we have to get an opinion about everything, but we need to learn. We need to try to get from a few resources before we get decide. And another point that it's very it can be very helpful for us to think what happened in another situation, another country that we don't connected with it emotional, and then to get it again to our life. And last, make love, not war. All right. Ben.
Mistake. Okay, I'm going to do my lecture on a very significant person in the Indian nation. Gandhi was one of the key leaders in the struggle to the India independence. And as a matter of fact, he was much more than this. He was revolutionary in his ideas. And the ideas that led him in his life, in his path, which made a decision in the light of those ideas. I can't talk about all of these ideas, but I think that the one idea that influenced the most on the world today is the ahimsa. The ahimsa is non-violence. This is like the meaning today. And ahimsa. Violence, something like this, it's not to harm somebody. More like if you say like the meaning in the Sanskrit. So he was considered to be the founder of the ahimsa movement, and to spread the concepts around the world. But before I proceed, I need to be more clear about what is ahimsa in Gandhi times and today. The term means a personal practice of being harmless to self and other under every condition. Not to make harm to anybody, if it's environmental, if it's animal, if to persons. He thinks that it's unnecessary to harm somebody to get your goals. In modern time, in these times, non-violent methods of action have been a powerful tool for social protest and revolution, social and political changes. There are many examples of the use of non-violence in our past. In start, of course, Gandhi. Martin Luther King uses Gandhi ahimsa. James Bevel, the Cesar Chavez, and much more. I want to say like a word for myself about this ahimsa. I think it's something that we heard before, but it touched me. That it's like to fuse the mean and the causes. It's like not to think about what I want to achieve, it's to think about how I want to achieve it. And it's very, very, very important because a lot of revolutions, if we're talking about revolutions today, a lot of revolutions did make their goals, but after this they didn't know what to what to do with the trauma that's been made to the people, or who to blame about all the problems that have been made during the revolution. It's like most of the revolutionary, the violent revolutionary, doesn't justify themselves after the revolution ends. And ahimsa, and this is what Gandhi taught us, it's a fusion of the means and cause, and it shows that in the long term, in the post-revolutionary future, it can make much more unity in the people, with the leadership together, and to not be guilty about what happened before, and not to forget the past, and just to move on with a way of life that is much more profitable for everybody. I think this is something that we need to think about when we are acting as a person in life, what we are doing when we are seeing a goal, what we are doing to achieve it, and if after we achieve it, what we can say to ourselves, how we can reflect it to ourselves. It's true for the personal level and for the social level, and that's it.
Woo! Okay, hi everybody.
Hi.
I'm going to talk today about the hijra, which is like the third gender, how they call. We talked about it, some of us ran into it, and I found it very interesting to think about the transgender groups here in India and in South Asia, and in our house in Israel, and in the Western world. So I will start with
this group in India. So in India they refer to call themselves Kinnar, right? Which is referring to the mythology. They have okay, so it's a group that comes from the ancient history. We know about her from the time of the Kama Sutra. And we know that Gandhi tried to uplift their position as a part of his trying to uplift the untouchable and other groups. So what is Hijra? Hijra consider themselves as neither completely man or woman. Most of them they're born as men, and they usually live in community. They have one guru that lead them. Most of them נאלצים forces to survive by sex workers, and the community collect those that wasn't most of the time rejected by the society or by their family. Okay, some Hijras doing like ceremony where they come into the community that make them like cut their manly organs. So this is part of it, but not all of them. And the word hijra, which most of us know from our Islam studies, is the same thing. In Hebrew, it's agira, and it means to move from your trial to a different group. Okay, so in sexuality, I will talk now about the sexuality part. Okay, in India, some Hijras do not define themselves by specific sexual orientation, but rather by mixed sexuality. They often dress like a woman, act like a woman, talk to each other in woman language, womanly. So this is one part. The usual partners of Hijra are men that consider themselves as heterosexual, which is straight. But it's most of the time they are doing what they are doing. If it's being together, if it's more than that, in a secret, the rest of the society don't know about these things. And there is belief that there is sexual energy of the interest that transforms to sacred powers. So in the society, in social status, most Hijras live in the margins of the society. I think that in the whole world, but they have a few employment opportunities, and it's things like extortion, which is to force people to pay you money unless you will coerce them. There is begging, there is ceremonies that they are doing a show and people give them money, sex workers, and stuff like this. There is a big problem of violence against Hijras. It's very brutal violence, and it occurs in everywhere. It could be in public places, and it could be in houses, but it's very known. And also there is extreme discrimination on them in health, education, employment, and etc. So in April 2014, the Supreme Court of India decided to treat this group as a third gender, and it means that they had to be much more are entitled to proportional access to representation in education and jobs, like that what happened with the Untouchable, with Aleph, that they have places in some work and the education places, so the same for the Hijra as well, to uplift their position. And I think it's interesting because it's only 4 years ago, and it's actually now, in our days. So if we are looking about the history of the Hijra, so we can see that there is mention of them in the Kama Sutra, and in religion there is many parts that the Hijras, no many, but some parts that the Hijras have shown there. So many practice for a form of Sanskrit that rose on multiple religions, seeing themselves to be neither man or woman. Hijra practice ritual for both men and women. Hijras belong to a special caste. They are usually devoted of the mother goddess Bahara Mata. Bahara Mata, I said it good. Bahara Mata? Yes.
I'm not sure.
Last property.
Mata is mother. The other word is what?
Bahara. Or Chara. Something like it.
Bahara.
Bahara. Okay.
Bahara. Okay. Bahara means like outside mother.
Okay.
Okay.
And Lord Shiva or both. So I will read these passages because it's a little complicated for understand. Bahara Mata, a Hindu goddess with two unrelated stories, both associated with transgender behavior. One story is that she appeared in avatar of princess who castrated her husband because he would run into the woods and act like a woman rather than have sex with her. Another story is that a man tried to rape her, so she cursed him to impotence. When the man begged her forgiveness to have the curse removed, she relented only after he agreed to run in the woods and act like a woman. The primary temple to this goddess is located in Gujarat, and it's the place of privilege for Hijras, who see Bahara Mata as a patroness. So this is one. The second is Lord Shiva. One of the forms of Lord Shiva is merging Parvati with what?
Together.
Yes, to merge them together. So it's half woman and half man. So the Hijras also consider themselves as they look at him like a role model. And the third one is in Ramayana. In some versions of the Ramayana, when Rama lived into Ayodhya for 14 years exile, when he returns, he found that the Hijras stayed at the same place when he just took his last speech, and he felt that they were very, I think, the most loyalty for him. And that's why he gave them he gave them the ability to bless people in special occasions like childbirth and marriage, and that's why they have this power. I think that from now we can understand that this is a group that's different in her sexuality, but behind that they have special abilities and the ability to give bless to other people, and that's the reason they still have the power above the society in so many things. So they can do whatever they want, and people feel fear from them because they can curse them. They have this ability, so they are like part of the society, but people still have this complicated relationship with them. So I read a lot about it, and then I think, whoa, what's going on in Israel? What's going on in my house? And I read that still, and I also know that still there are many problems with the exception of the society for this group of people. We know that the other gay and lesbian still part of the society, but this group is much harder for everyone to accept there, and there is the Pride crowd all over the world actually that acts for special, not special, for normal זכויות, rights, for normal rights and treat. And also there is, in Hebrew it's הקהילה הגאה, the Pride society, a community that keeps on each other, but for the transgender there is semi-community that keeps them much harder because it's much harder to be transgender, it's much harder to be part of the society. So I found it very interesting to read them both. I found it very interesting to see that in India there is a place that can contain this group from the ancient time, while in the Western world was not such a thing. People like this immediately became a freak and went to freak house or just killed. So I tried to think, okay, in the past India was much liberal, and today I don't know, I'm not sure what is the situation today. Like, what do you think the liberal world, if the liberal world is not liberal, if the Western world is much more liberal, or India, which was much liberal, but today, where is better to be transgender? I don't know. I would like to hear your opinion. What do you think? Actually, I think that you have more information. If someone wants to answer, no.
So we do have like the aspects are changing. For example, earlier we did not have, as you said, that the education wasn't there. But right now we are making a move. So in Bangalore there is a school where the principal is a transgender right now.
Wow.
So yes, so that is the step we have taken. So it is moving slowly. Now they are getting into jobs also. There are certain organizations, private organizations, which have like only the transgender people working in it. So there is a move, of course.
Okay.
It does take some time. It's definitely going to take a little longer time.
Thanks. And just another question. You think that there is hope for them in all over the world, because I think they are in the margins in every society, to be a part, to feel equal, to be equal. It's still not something natural for a lot of people. It's something that is hard to see. So you think there is a chance that in, I don't know, 100 years from now it will be better?
100, maybe 10.
10 years? Wow. I
Yes,
hope.
we can. Wow.
Okay, so I will read. I just ran into some kind of protest of Hijra woman. That she has a whole article that discuss about what she feels, and I will read only one part of it. And it was interesting for me to really understand how she experienced this situation. The women in India live, work, and occupy public space together. This is strategy for survival arrived upon out of a deep understanding of public violence, discrimination, and vulnerability. Most trans people in India came from poor families. One of the reasons for this may be that trans people who are from economically well-off families might be concerned about inheritance issue and losing out on financial support if they were to assert their gender openly. Or if they are not from poor families, they become economically, socially, and politically disposed as a result of their trans identity. Dalit trans activist and artist living Smile Vida talks about transphobia as type of Brahminism, with the Hijra becoming the untouchable subject. Because of transphobia, even Hijras and trans men who come from well-off savannah family are unable to pursue their education or pursue job. It is only Dalit colonies that trans people are able to rent out houses. This might be the result not of an exception of our trans identity, but rather of the economic necessity of the poor house's owner to rent out his or her house. The fact that there is more visibility of hijras in Dalit colonies has to a certain extent normalized their presence. True, they are still ridiculous on an everyday basis. Heteropia, tarical boxes of acceptable gender categories are distorted by our very presence. True, they are still ridiculous on the everyday basis. Heteropia triple boxes of acceptable gender categories are disrupted by our very presence. Unlike sexuality, which can be private identity that you can choose to revel when you feel you need the need to do so, gender is a public concept. There is no coming out for trans people. We are always already out on, and hence instantly vulnerable to attacks on our selfhood. When white for savannah cis families dismiss binary trans identities and place on us the burden of challenging gender boxes. They do so without understanding our vulnerabilities and violence we face. When we are visibly other, they do so without being self-critical of their own complicity in cis heteropolygy. So I think that it's also interesting to see how the people inside the society feel and see this situation. And that's it.
Woo!